God has a purpose in what He allows.
Yes. Amen.
If we don't believe that, then what good is our faith? Because life has just as many downs as ups. Sometimes more, yeah. At least it seems like it, doesn't it? And sometimes you get to the point where yesterday's up isn't, or yesterday's down isn't up, right? Yeah, been there, done that, didn't like it none. We have to go to prayer this morning. We wish to go to prayer. I wonder if you have any additional requests you'd like to bring to the church this morning. Oh, Lord, as we pray. Heavenly Father, it is our privilege to come into your presence and bow our hearts before you, King Eternal. Lord, often we don't think of your majesty when we come because you are our Father and you're our friend, and you make us so comfortable in your presence. But you are truly the King, God Almighty. And we bow in your presence this morning, humbly and gratefully, that you invite us to come. And you invite us not just to come, to bring our problems and our troubles and our worries and lay them at your feet. And Lord, you promised that you would meet our needs. And so we come. We want to express our thanksgiving, Lord, for your love, your loving kindness, and your tender mercy toward us. And we want to thank you, Lord, for even the snow, Lord, because we know it's part of your plan. Even though it makes our lives a little more inconvenient, it is beautiful, Lord. And we thank you for the beauties of the earth and what it brings in the springtime, Lord. We thank you for that. We thank you, Lord, that we have come to know you. Thank you for the gentle ways you lead us. tender words you speak into our hearts, Lord, and teach us of your ways, and tell us of your love for us, Lord. Thank you for that. Each one that's here this morning, I pray, Lord, that everyone that's come out this morning will receive a benefit from you, Lord, for having been in church this morning, apart from just fulfilling your instructions to us to not forsake the assembling of ourselves together. Be with those who could not make it in today, Lord, who would have, who tried or couldn't make it, or would have if they weren't worried about the weather, Lord. I just pray that you would then minister to them, and we would thank you and praise you for that. I pray for those who will be listening and watching the YouTube or the service online, Lord. I pray that you reach out to them and speak to their hearts and fulfill their needs. And I pray that many will be brought to Christ. And I pray this morning that you remember these requests that have been listed. There are those that we list in our bulletin that we pray for throughout the week. In addition, Lord, we just pray that you would be with Dennis and Dar as they travel. Keep your hand upon them, Lord, and protect them from the danger of the roads and the complexities of the changing weather, Lord. Give them a profitable time in Florida, I pray. Be with the Bob Flannery family, Lord, that you bring comfort and peace to them at this time of sorrow in their lives. Lord, we know that we all must leave this world, but every one of us, when we go, Lord, we leave behind people who rely on us. And I just pray that you would be their help and be their strength in this time of bereavement, Lord. And do guide and direct and help in the formation of the Good News Club at Walkerville School. Yes. I just pray, Lord, that there would be an inroad here. There's a lot of darkness in the public schools today, Lord, and a lot of wickedness. And I pray, oh God, that you would open up this window of light into the school, into the hearts of children who desperately need to hear about it. And we give you praise. Father, I do pray that this service this morning would be a time of worship and love and a time of instruction. I pray, Lord, that you'd be with us in a very special way. I pray that you bless the ministries of Walkerville Wesleyan Church. Father, may we be a light in a dark world. May we show Christ to a world who's lost and lost their direction, Lord, and lost their hope in many cases, Lord. May we bring hope to Christ and help and strength, grace and goodness. For what you do, we give you praise. In Jesus' name. Now, we have a few announcements. This is not in your bulletin. It's in mine because I scribbled it. We would love to have, in the next week or so, some feedback from you regarding the proposed or the outline of mission statement that we published. The board published it. It has not yet been adopted, and we would love to have some feedback. How many of you have actually read it, other than the board members? One, two, maybe. Okay, look, please pick one up and read it, and share your ideas with us. This is not, the board represents you, but they can only represent you if you tell them what you're thinking. And we really welcome that. We want to adopt, well, we're not going to adopt it, we're going to bring it to the church to be adopted, but we want to adopt a mission statement, number one, that centers in Christ, in the mission of the church, and what we want to accomplish. And more than what we want to accomplish, what we feel God is directing us to accomplish.
Hallelujah.
Where are they?
They're on the table in the back. Yes, thank you. I probably forgot to tell them that. They're on the table in the back. And if you get back there this morning and they're gone, ask one of the board members, ask somebody, we'll get one to you. We really want you to read it, digest it, think it over, pray over it. Okay? I urge you to do this. Well, enough said for today. On the 2nd, on Sunday morning, we'll be enjoying, worshiping God by ending the service with a communion. Pastor Bob will be preaching, as far as I know, that's his Sunday to preach. On the 9th, another LBA meeting. On the 15th, our wild game dinner. And I still say, I see seeking volunteers is still in bold print. You still need them?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
And we would like you to buy tickets if you haven't, or recommend other people buy tickets. And then we have a sign-up sheet for donations of food
Okay.
and for volunteers. If you could pass that and then go around again. And I will be selling tickets after church in the back as you go out. So if you need more tickets, I'll be waiting on you.
So please don't take your scourge and run her out like she's a money lender.
Oh, please don't. It's good food. If you haven't been there, it's very good. It's awesome.
It's a great meal. A wonderful time. And Brother Bill will be bringing a message or speaking. I presume a message, but I shouldn't presume that. He gets to choose what he talks about. And so we're looking forward to that.
God will be involved.
And Warren has had a successful fishing expedition.
Warren has been catching fish left and right. I don't know if it's the will of God or he's just a great fisherman. But anyway, we're thankful for that. Okay.
Well, if you're done with that, Pastor, snow always makes me think of one thing. VBS.
Oh.
Oh,
It's January, right? But VBS will be here sooner than later. I'd like to ask you all to pray about what you could, what you would, what you'd be willing to do this year. And some of you, I'm going to come up and ask you, are you willing to do this? We need to start preparing. It's a great time. It's a time for us to reach our kids in the community.
How many, if any, have read the verse that's on the front of the bulletin? Isn't that a great verse? It's actually 2 verses. Aren't those great verses? You ought to read them if you don't. That's very uplifting in my opinion. All right, thank you, Linda. If the ushers will come forward, we'll receive God's tithes and your offerings. Yeah, nothing to apologize for. That's beautiful. I told you last Sunday that I have a challenge and I was going to preach that this morning. Now I'm going to have to tell you I'm going to start it this morning. There's so much more to this than I first anticipated. But if you'd like a springboard from which we can start, turn to the Gospel of John, chapter 14, and verse 1. So the verse I'm going to read is a text for about the next 2 or 3 weeks. Gospel of John, chapter 14. Reading from the NIV. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Trust in God. Trust also in me. If you have the King James, it says, let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. In case you have the King James and prefer that, I just thought I'd accommodate you this morning. I love the old King James. It's just, and I guess I finally have to get with the modern age. It's just like, I got a new cell phone for Christmas. My son got it for me. He got both of us an iPhone 8, which is way more phone than I'm smart enough to handle. And I went into the store the other day, but I went to pay the bill. And then I do a little kiosk. And that I can figure out, you know. But I went in, and they got a guy running the store. They do great service in the store. He said, well, that's a good thing, I guess. I said, for you it is, right? So, anyway. But I do now preach from the NIV as a concession to the modern age. Trust. Believe. Big word, right? Not very long. Really easy to pronounce. It's not one of those $40 words that you need a college degree just to get out of your mouth in one piece. And yet it's a tremendously powerful concept. And Jesus said here, trust me. Believe me. Now, I have heard it said that you can tell what somebody really believes by their actions. Right? Yep. Now, I could stand here and tell you the church is on fire. And I can say convincingly, the church is on fire. But none of you move because you don't believe me. You believe the church is not on fire. And you are right. It's not on fire. But the reason you didn't jump up and move is because you believe it's not on fire.
Right.
Is that true or is that not true? You with me so far? Does that make sense?
Yes,
Do we act on our beliefs? We live out our beliefs.
that is correct.
Whether it be an emergency or just the everyday humdrum walk of life. We live out our beliefs. And we show people what we believe by how we live. Would you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
So how, I'm going to talk a little bit, maybe extreme, and then try to bring it back eventually to a daily walk. But how does it look to believe and trust God? How does that look? I'm going to do a couple of examples from the Old Testament, a couple from the New. And then about week 3 of this, I'm going to tie it all up in a little bundle, I hope. But Noah could talk to us about what it meant to trust God, couldn't he?
Right.
If he were here today, he would say, it's doing what God tells you to do.
Yep.
No matter what. And you see that no matter what in his case takes you out to the very extreme actions of life. Because here he was in a land that had never seen a flood, in an area that there wasn't even much water. There wasn't an ocean there. There wasn't any really, really big rivers there. And God told Noah, build yourself an ark. And he wasn't talking about a little sailboat to sail in a mud puddle.
Right.
If you've been down down south of Cincinnati, Kentucky, where they built the ark to the actual dimensions, that thing is about 450 feet long.
Right.
It's enormous.
Yes.
It's what, 10 stories high, I believe they said? Now, Noah wasn't a shipbuilder. I don't know what he was, but he wasn't a shipbuilder because he didn't live where they built ships.
Right.
No. But God said, Noah, build an ark. I'm going to give you a plan and build it. Now, maybe you heard Bill Cosby's old comedy routine about Noah. Build the ark. Noah said, right. What's an ark? And that's probably pretty close to what happened. Okay, Lord, what is an ark? And the Lord gave him a plan. Told him what kind of wood to use. And not only did Noah obey God, but he employed his 3 sons, and they got busy building an ark. Now, okay, no big deal. Except that it took them 120 years to build it.
Right. Oh,
Now, I was always very good at starting projects when I was young. I have got, as a kid, my dad threw out so many of my nicely started, never finished projects. They cluttered his basement. He moved from, my sister bought their house and they bought my grandmother's house, and they threw out a bunch of projects. My dad says, "You want this stuff?" I said, "What stuff?" I didn't even remember that I had started. You know, I mean, I lost interest in about 3 days. That's my point. 120 years. Noah and his sons faithfully built the ark. Do you think God came by every 2 or 3 days and said, "You on that? You did." I don't think so. It doesn't say so, does it? It doesn't say that God came by and reminded, come on, God, get up. You know, time's wasting. Get to building that ark. Burning daylight here, you know, it's the kind of phrases that we use. Now, Noah may have done that to his sons. But Noah, in his obedience to God, had a sense of purpose.
Yes.
And that was to complete the work that God had given him to do. Now, week 3 will come back to that statement. Doing the work that God had given him to do. Okay? But I think if Noah were here this morning, he'd say, "Yeah, people thought I was nuts." Yeah, I'm sure they did. I'm sure his son would say, "Yeah, we kind of thought he was nuts." Huh? Wouldn't you? I mean, my kids respect me. But if I told them, "Kids, come on over and sell your houses and get rid of every entanglement and encumbrance, because we're going to build a 450-foot boat in my backyard," my kids would say, "No, we ain't." But that's what Noah did. I don't know how in the world he convinced them. I mean, I'm just saying, I don't know how in the world he convinced them. But there was a conviction in him that this is what God wanted. That this is what God had called him to do. And he was convinced of it, convicted of it.
Hallelujah.
And because of that, he was able to portray or exude to his sons a sense of urgency, a sense of purpose. And because of that, they caught the vision. Just let me say that we will get this vision thing squared away. We will. But more than anything, more than just a plan on paper, I want a vision to be something that burns in our hearts. I want to be something that propels us, compels us, that feeds our passion for Christ.
Yes.
And our passion to win the lost. Our loved ones. People we don't even know.
Right.
Our vision should be that. It should be that thing inside of us that just does a slow burn, constantly feeding our passion for the lost. And to win the lost, to build the church. And to do the work that God has given us to do. I'll be revisiting that several times probably. Just fair warning. So here's Noah. I mean, what's the point, right? After Noah had been at it for about 20 years, I'm sure his son says, "Hey, Dad, why don't we just use all this lumber for firewood and forget this whole thing?" That's a practical approach.
Right.
Not a right one, but a practical one. Just because something's logical doesn't mean it's right.
Right.
Because in order for logic to be worth anything, you've got to start from a proper premise. And when you don't have a proper premise, you can apply all the logic you want, you're still going to wind up at an erroneous destination.
Right.
So, very logical. I mean, it makes a lot of sense to say, "Dad, we got all this wood, been 20 years. We haven't had a drop of rain. What is the point? What is the purpose? Why bother?"
Right.
I'm just saying. Talking about Noah's faith in God. Have you ever been tempted? Craig and I were talking about this morning. I've been driving down the road and the devil just said to me, you know, stupidest thing in the world. You are preaching out of a 4,000 or 5,000 year old book and telling people it's relevant.
Yes.
And that does sound stupid, but it's not,
Right,
because it is relevant.
right.
And 120 years down the road, when that ark was finished and pitched within and without, and all set to go, and Noah had, after they got it all built, God told him to fill it with food.
Right.
He loaded up hay, bales of hay, and straw for the pens, and I mean, talk about crazy. Except he wasn't, was he?
Nope.
Just seemed that way. Got it all done, and God brought the animals in. That ark filled up, and it started raining from the sky, and the fountains of the deep were open. The water gushed from the ground and poured from the sky until the only living things on earth were inside.
Right.
Now, I don't pretend to be able to get into Noah's head, but I sure would like to talk to him.
Right.
I'd love to ask him, Noah, how did it feel about year 110?
Right.
I mean, you're growing old building this thing. You realize that when he started, he was 600 years old when he went in there. That means when he started, he was only 480 years old. Just a young guy.
Just Brian.
He's over that age.
But, I'm sorry.
All right.
I mean, I see a lot of funny in this, but there's a lot of serious too. Because he believed God. He believed him.
Yes.
He believed him so strongly that God didn't have to keep coming back and nudge him and say, come on, let's get going. He believed him so deeply that that belief motivated him to do what God had told him to do.
Yes.
And he did it. He kept doing it.
Hallelujah.
I just wonder, you married guys, you know how your wives are sometimes. You do something that looks silly to them. Maybe your wife didn't poke fun at you. My wife pokes fun at me. But when I do something she thinks is silly, she just pokes fun at me so fiercely.
She mocked at me.
Huh?
She mocked at me.
No. It might be that.
So easy.
I hope they respect me.
That's not naughty.
But what I'm saying is, I would just love to be a fly on the wall when Mrs. Noah went after him. You know. Yeah, but you know, well, there's so much we got to be doing, and you're not farming, you're not planting crops, and maybe he was. Maybe that's why it took 120 years, I don't know. But the shed needs to be cleaned, the barn needs to be rebuilt. What do you do? You're just no fool. No. Now, I don't know that she said that. I don't know that she didn't. But if she didn't, somebody did.
Oh, yes.
You know. But we don't always understand what's going on spiritually, even with our spouses, do we?
Right.
Do you know that I've had to say to my wife, she said, I don't understand why you're doing that. And I've had to say to her, well, as much as I want you to understand, it's really not important whether you do or don't. This is what I must do. Is that not true?
Yes.
I must do what the Lord is directing me to do. If nobody understands,
Thank you.
God's will and He understands my heart, some days that's all that is necessary. Some days. And some things are just, there's no explanation. The best explanation for Noah was at the end of 120 years when the rain started falling. Then it all made sense. And all those people were up to their chins in water. Said, oh, now I understand. I doubt they said that. They had bigger concerns than that. But you know what I'm saying? It all made sense.
Right.
When God revealed what was coming and what this was preparation for, then it all made sense. No. I'm talking about have faith. Trust God. You say, well, there's nothing in my life as dramatic as that. How do you know?
Right.
How do you know that? I can't say I'll bet you. All right, preacher, don't bet, do that.
Whatever.
I would be willing to conjecture that up to the time God spoke to Noah about building an ark, he would have said the same thing. I wouldn't do anything that outrageous. I wouldn't do anything that crazy. Then God spoke to him. Throughout this series, or whatever you want to call it, on this challenge for the year, I'm going to continue to point to this issue, or this thing, this question. And that is, what if God calls you to do something out of your comfort zone that appears outrageous to you? Well, Lord, I've never done that. That's just not me. People are going to think I'm crazy. You all look at me like I am.
No. Preach on, brother.
I got news for you. I am. It's okay here. Let's visit someone else real quick. I'm not going to do Job this morning because it'll take too long. Let's talk a little bit about Abraham. Here's a guy that was living his life in Ur of the Chaldees. Just a perfectly good Chaldean. Just doing what he did and happy to be there. He was more religious than the people around him. But one day God spoke to him and said, Abram. And he said, here, my Lord. He said, I want you to move. Where? Well, I'll show you. Come on, isn't this what happened?
Yeah.
He said, I want you to take everything, take your family, take your possessions, sell your property, get out of here, leave, don't come back. Yeah, but Lord, where are we going? Well, I'll show you when we get there. Now, I would not advise anybody to start a trip like that. You know, I wouldn't. And I would, if I said to you, come on, let's go somewhere. Well, where? Oh, I don't know. We'll figure it out when we get there. I would not advise you to do that. I think you should assume that I've slipped a cog somewhere, if I would say that. But I'm not God.
That's right.
And God spoke to Abram. And Abram knew it was God. And he did just exactly what God asked him to do.
Amen.
He picked up, packed up, got his family, his father, his nephew Lot, who was in his care at the time, and they left Ur of the Chaldees. And I guess God pointed them in the direction he wanted them to go, and away they went. Did not know exactly where he was going. Now, I think we can relate to that. I can relate to that a little bit. Probably not like, but when God calls us to ministry, when God called me to preach, righteous man, I'm not saying that.
Right.
He's the first one God called in this way. And this was the beginning of the Hebrew nation. But God called him, he went. They got as far as, was it Hebron? And they stayed there for a while, and then they went on after his father died, and they wound up in the hills of Judea. And several went through his life, and I'm not going to go to all of them, we don't have time. But when God promised him a son,
Right.
and he'd already tried to help God with that, because it was like several years, God had promised him a son, didn't have one. Finally, Sarah had the bright idea they'd help God out a little bit.
Right.
There's a good lesson in that, but we won't go there today. He doesn't need our help. Doesn't do that for now.
Right.
But she thought they'd help God out a little bit. So, she said, you take Hagar as your other wife. And she can have children for me. Well, it didn't work out like that, did it?
Right.
But that was her idea. And so, Abraham had this son, Ishmael. And then God came again when Ishmael was 13 years old and said to him, you will have a son.
Right.
And Abraham loved Ishmael. He said, let Ishmael live before you. And God said, no, you will have a son by your wife, as I promised you before. This time next year, if you read it, it says, this time next year. And Sarah was sitting there, she overheard and said, yeah, right. And, she was 99 years old. Now, there's nobody here that old this morning, but if you were, anybody want to volunteer to have a baby at 99 years old?
I don't want this.
I'm thinking no takers, right?
Unless she came with a nanny.
I'm pretty sure my wife's going to have more kids. She's not even close to 99. And that's what happened. And she did have a child. And Abraham trusted God. And then God came to Abraham. He said, Abraham. And this is probably when Isaac was 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, something like that. He said, Abraham. And after all God had done for Abraham, Abraham said, here I am, Lord. And welcomed God, and God said, I want you to take your son, your only son Isaac,
Yes.
and sacrifice him on the hill that I will show you. And for the first time, Abraham wanted to say about meeting God.
Right.
I'm sure his heart dropped like Abraham. And yet we're told in Hebrews that Abraham believed that God was able to raise Isaac back from the dead.
Right. Right.
Now, he'd never seen anybody raised from the dead,
Right.
but he'd seen God.
Right.
And God had proved to him. I guess he thought, well, if God could enliven the womb of a 99-year-old woman and bring forth a child, if I cut that child up on the altar, God can bring it back to me.
Right.
But his faith in God was astounding, in my view.
Yes.
Because there are many people who have been around the church and known the preaching of the word and seen the work of God and read the Gospels, how Jesus healed the sick. They don't have nearly the faith in him that Abraham had.
Right.
But Jesus said here in the text, trust me. You trust God, trust me. Trust me. Now, I'm going to stop here this morning. I've got about at least one more full message on this before I get to the end of it. But yeah, please stick around for the end because you're just getting the introduction this morning. We sing that little song, faith in God can move a mighty mountain. Faith will calm troubled sea. And that's true. But we're glib about talking about faith, and sometimes we're not so good at applying it, about truly trusting God. My challenge for the year, by the time I get to that, I'm going to give you a little preview here, and I'm going to stop because I'm running out of voice and I'm out of breath here. But my challenge is going to be this: find something. Ask God, but search for something, some answer to prayer, something big that you will pray through and trust God for this year. Make a covenant between you and God. I want to know. You don't have to share it with me. But you be praying about that, Lord. What would you have me to reach for this year that I've never reached for before? And trust you for it. And believe you to do. And ask the Lord to guide you. Because God will do it.
Yes, He will.
And I do believe, I've said it before, and I'll be saying it till you run me out of here. And that's that God has a purpose for all that He's accomplished here in the past 5 or 6 years.
Amen.
He has a purpose. And the purpose is right here and out around us. It's for us to take hold of God until God takes hold of the people around us. Father, we ask you to bless this introduction and preliminary part of this message, Lord. I pray that your hand would be upon your people, that you would inspire us to reach for great things and trust you, Lord, for mighty works. I pray that you bless your remainder of the service, bless your people, bless your people, I pray in Jesus' name.
Father, thank you that you have called us out of darkness
Yes.
into your light.
Thank you.
Father, we ask that you would speak to our hearts, that we might speak your light to those around us. We ask now that you go with us as we lead, with your Spirit, go before